Hi, I'm Andrew Fleck, just here for a Wednesday's model discussion. And what I talked about earlier this week is that I would be doing model discussions every day. And I'd be talking about, for some of you guys that don't know, a major pattern shift that is going to be taking place in the next week or so. So I'm going to be doing some model discussions every day to see where we are in the pattern and where the models keep hinting. Right now, models are rather very consistent with this pattern change, and it's starting to look every day a little more favorable. Yesterday we talked about where the storm track would go and where they would be and what the effect they would have on the colder shots that would be coming down. Today we're going to talk about the temps and the temperatures within the storm that will affect the cold shots that come down progressively through the days and weeks. But before I go into the models, I'm going to first go over the United States here and show you some of the active areas. Again, there's not too much of any real major activity here, but still a good dose enough to give some rain and a slight area of snow. And mainly that slight area of snow would be over the areas of Washington and Oregon. Some of that northern jet energy always seeps right into there. Another area is your low pressure, just really now into the Ohio Valley now, and this was a storm that was affecting Utah, Colorado, Kansas with snow a few days ago, and that has now moved up into the Ohio Valley. Right now, where I have circled is where the rain is going to be affecting through tonight. And the red here, this is where the rain is going to be affecting into Thursday and Friday. It's not going to be a real major event by any means, but probably during your day on Thursday into the Mid-Atlantic and Northeast, it'll start out as some drizzle, some showers off and on. As you get into Thursday night into Friday, that's when some of the rain could start to progressively intensify, just for a time being of maybe an hour or so. So it doesn't appear even with that to be too bad. So it's really not a big hazard by any means. But if you are traveling, be advised that there is some rain falling, and some of it could be heavy around Thursday night. But again, not too much to really dwell on. As we go into the models here, this is now going to be your first glimpse, and this is the storm on Friday that I just talked about here. And this storm is going to be centered mainly over the Ohio Valley, just going to kind of straggle there. It's not going to move much. And what it's going to do, okay, because we talked about yesterday how this 540 upper northern jet was hanging up into Canada, what this is then going to do is it's going to start to transfer a little bit. You can kind of see it start to transfer right here into this northern jet, so it's going to absorb itself. So what's going to happen is then you're going to have finally, okay, a little bit of a cold shot come down in itself here, and so what that's just going to be a bit of a mini one. So now what we're going to do is show you what this mini cold shot is going to do, and this is very, very slightly cold. It's not going to be very, very freezing or very, very warm by any means, but what this storm does, like I said, is it absorbs its energy and temperature into the upper jet, and that causes just a slight trough or a slight cooler area over probably the upper Midwest and the Great Lakes region. Now on the next map here, or model image, this is what then happens as that imagery that I just talked about comes down. So now what happens is you now have that one that I was just talking about moving out, but now you see here it's starting to absorb itself into the second trough that comes down and digs down. So as you kind of seen the consistent pattern here, you have this storm currently that's going to be over the Great Lakes absorb itself into one very weak cold shot. Then that cold shot is going to start to express itself to the northeast up to maybe Nova Scotia, then transfer its energy and temps back to a colder shot in the west, and then you're just going to keep having this happen until you finally get enough transferring that you're going to have a big trough. Now, looking aside from the transferring, you can see here that there is a coastal storm here that's digging around Florida, around Alabama, Georgia, and what that's going to do is that's going to move north along the coast here, and that's going to actually fire up a little bit itself. So in this next imagery here, I'm going to show you where the coastal and what it does and what the cold air does. So in the next imagery here, this is when the storm really starts to spiral up a little bit. And yesterday on the models, I was saying to myself, this is just going to be interesting to see how it plays out. Is it going to be a strong storm? Is it going to be weak? Well, now we're looking at the storm 24 hours later, and it looks like a monster for the Northeast. So, I mean, go figure on that one. We go from seeing something disorganized to now the GFS picking it up and saying this might be something to watch, maybe up to the northeastern coasts. Of course, temperatures don't appear to be cold enough, but something as for another coastal to be watching probably by next Monday. Then behind that, okay, the storm finally heads up and a trough can come down and really finally close down up and around into the region. You had all that transferring going on continuously from the storm that's currently affecting the Great Lakes, formed its own very weak trough that then transferred to this bigger storm here. And now what this bigger storm is going to do is really punch down and really set the tune for finally, I think, the later half of November and into December, preferably your winter. So what we're going to see on this last imagery here, I believe, is going to be the cold air finally moving itself down. So now what you're seeing is the cold air finally moving. Okay, you have storms wrapping around it, and sometimes you can get the trough squeezing itself and sometimes forms a cutoff, but this appears that the storm wraps itself into the cold air, and the cold air is able to seep down more and actually move. So to me, it appears that really this next pattern in the next week or two seems to really show the right ingredients for finally seeing the colder air come down, that colder shot that comes down that people call the freeze train, the Polar Express, all of those names. It seems like we're finally going to get that first shot come down. This is a great imagery to show it, actually. Just central Canadian air coming right into the upper Midwest and then straggling down into the Tennessee Valley, Mid-Atlantic, and Northeast later on. So, all in all, I mean, what we just showed here was some pretty good stuff, pretty much enabling what this pattern is going to be going into. Again, I'm going to do an overview wrap-up here. The first storm that's over the Great Lakes, what that's going to do is just not as much as the storm, but what it's going to do is just tap or transfer itself back into the northern jet. It's going to form a weak trough or a weak cold air pocket that's then going to move through the northeast a little bit, and then what that's going to do is transfer to a bigger trough. That's the one that's going to really be the big pattern changer that's going to form in the west and move to the northeast. So it's going to move from west to east. So the way it looks to me is we have two storms. Those two storms are going to be the bed makers for what the trough does. And basically what I see here, given the short range of this first storm on radar, pretty much that one's going to set the stage of finally having a cold shot being born. That second coastal is going to be the watcher. If it's strong enough, it's going to cause cold air to come down quicker. If it's just disorganized, it's going to do the same effect. But either way you put it, I think we're going into finally that pattern where the cold air and the systems move through, they transfer back, and they form bigger cold shot waves. So that's really how this whole weather pattern is going to be shaping up. So that's about a wrap for tonight's model discussion. I'll talk to you guys tomorrow. I might even do a little update tonight, so look forward to that. So have a good one, and I'll talk to you guys later.